Hello everyone, this is Margarita with CityGal Papeterie. I wanted to show you how I made these ATC cards using some cards that I had used to blot up some watercolor paint and sprays that I used in a different project. And I'm going to be using this VersaFine Black Onyx ink pad along with some older stamps that I have in my stash to create a background, and then I also am going to use the image stamps on scrap paper to cut them out and then lay them on the ATC cards in a cluster style, and I'll show you that in a little bit. So first I start with this Scripty stamp. I'll include the names for them in the description below. I don't remember what they are offhand. They are really old, but I'll just leave the names for the products that I used in the description box below in case anyone is interested. So I go through and just tap my stamp on my ink pad. I'm not even using an acrylic block for this. I'm not trying to get a perfect image. I'm just trying to get a background on each of these cards. I will also be putting their measurements right here on the screen. They are standard ATC card size. And so here are the image stamps that I'm using. Again, I've had these for a really long time, but I will include their names below and the brand below. And I'm going to repeat the process. I'm just, patting them on my ink pad and then making impressions on pattern paper scraps. I stamp a few images of each of the stamps. And at this point, I wasn't really sure what paper I was going to use with what card. As you can see, I kind of have three different colored groups there. Like the top row of ATCs has blotted purple and pinkish colors, and then the middle one is blue and green, and then the bottom is more like an orangey and pinkish type of colors. So I was trying to pick pattern paper that would coordinate with that. So once I've stamped all my images, I am going to fussy cut them out with some detail scissors. And I've been asked what fussy cutting is in the past, and fussy cutting really just means you're cutting your image out very close to the edge of the picture of the image. You may or may not leave a border, it's up to you. The images that you use if you wanted to create this project doesn't really matter. You use whatever you have on hand. You could use like animal stamps, you could use wording, basically whatever you have. If you wanted to make these in a specific theme, you could do that as well. This is a really good way of using up scrap paper. So now I'm gonna go through my scrap paper stash and grab little pieces that I can cluster with each of my images on my card. And again, I'm trying to kind of pick stuff that would coordinate well with the background that I already have on the card. So when I look for patterns to use on something like this, I want to use things with either contrasting colors so that they stand out, or something within the same color family that has like a more bold print. So again, I want it to stand out, but I want the colors to go together. So you can kind of really use anything, because the backgrounds, even though they have a particular color, the pattern paper is just mixed. Like it just has different colors. So pretty much anything could coordinate. I move things around until I feel like they look good, and then I just go with that. But yeah, I feel like there's really no specific rules to this. You kind of just do whatever. Just use up your scraps, in other words. So here I'm also grabbing this piece of die cut that I had left over from some other project, and I didn't want to throw it away because it looked so pretty and so detailed, and I'm going to be using that here. I also have on the left side of my screen, you can see some pieces of lace that I have trimmed down to size because I want to add a little strip of lace to each of the clusters. And you'll see me just continuing to go through my little scrap stash and adding to the backgrounds and the stamped images to make these cute little clusters. I think I try to limit it to like 2 to 3 pieces for each card. This is also a nice way to use stamps that maybe you haven't used before, you weren't sure how to use them. And then if anyone is wondering like what you would do with these, what I did was after they were all completed, I had a little book that I had made and I just glued one on each page with a little quote. So I just made like a little art book that I have in my stash. You could give that away as a gift, as a little pick-me-up if you wanted to use that in place of something like a birthday card. If you wanted to just have like birthday sentiments on it, you could put these on the top of a birthday card or any card really, and then add your own sentiment to it. These could also be used in junk journaling or in mini albums. Yeah, really they could be used for a lot of stuff, I'm not just making them to kind of stash them. I do like to use my little projects that make me happy. I'm happy just making them, but I definitely want to use them also. I am going to pass them through my sewing machine. I think I use mostly like a little zigzag pattern stitch. You could glue these down, or you could even staple them down if you don't want to sew, or if you don't, you would prefer not sewing the papers. You can also just staple them. You could glue them, or you could even use a brad. If you want to use a few brads, this is a good way to use them up as well. I also feel like if you add a little like fold over flap on the top of them, they could even be bookmarks. You could use them to like mark your pages in your books or your journal or your planner or something like that. This would be good for that too. I have another upcoming video on using up scraps, so I hope that this gives you an idea of how you can use up some scraps if you have scraps lying around that you want to make something with. And then the next video I have coming up is also on using up scraps, because I don't know if you're familiar with my channel, I'm like the scrap lady. I have so many scraps because I make projects and I save all of the pretty papers that everyone else would probably throw away. I can't throw them out. And as you can see, I find use for them. I always go back and dig through my scrap stash and try to make projects using my little pieces of scrap. And I really enjoy it. I like knowing that I've used it to the max and I did not let it go to waste at all. Surprisingly, I have paper that I've had forever, and you would think sometimes you do get tired of certain patterns or certain paper themes, but I don't know. I feel like I always find new ways to use them, and since I'm using them in a different way, I guess I see them in a different light, I hope that makes sense. So here I am grabbing my blending tool and my black ink, and I'm just inking up all of the edges for each of the stamped images as well as the pieces of scrap. And I like this look. I think it makes it look a little bit more finished, and it allows each of the pieces to stand out against each other. Put that through my sewing machine, and as you can see, here's the stitching towards the top, holding all the pieces together. And that could be used as a tuck spot. You could glue it down as well if you don't want it to have that flap. And so I go through, this is kind of repetitive. I ink them up, cluster them, pass them through the sewing machine, add some stitching. I think I only use like this hot pink stitching for all of these. And here are the finished cards. I love how these came out. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it gave you some ideas or inspiration for using some of your scraps and some of your stamps that maybe you haven't used in a long time or forgot you had. It's a good way to pull them out and just give them some use and some love. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe. I'll see you all next time.